Central Texas. Welcome to Kids Community Connections at My Kids 1031. And I'm Phyllis Jones. I'm your host, as always. And I have a great guest. We're going to have fun today. But before I introduce my guest, I'm going to lead into inviting my guest. We know we have this lovely thing called the coronavirus attacking us. It's attacking us. And I'm saying it's attacking us in two ways. One, it's changed our lifestyle. So those of us who were used to being busy, getting up, going to work, and all of a sudden we can't go to work. And then, to the parents, I'm listening to them on Facebook having strokes because they're finding out that what we said about their child is actually true. I'm not laughing. Yes, I am. But also, it's caused us to like rethink. Because we all keep our hands clean and stuff like that, But now we have to rethink and go, excuse me, when I see somebody in the store, I got to remember, I can't say, hi, how are you normally? I have to, do the distance high thing. But my main concern is we have a large population of homeless. And as you know, I didn't stay in the house all like I was supposed to. I'm going to admit that I didn't. Anyway, I went down to where the homeless are just to check on them, because, hey, we do a lot of events for the homeless, so we kind of feel responsible a little bit. So I went down there and I saw one lady walking that I knew, and I said, hey, how you doing? She said, I'm doing fine. She said, what's going on? And I looked at her, I was like, okay, now how do I answer that? Because she didn't expound on that. I said, so what do you mean? She said, library's closed. I said, oh, yeah, it's closed. I said, did you read the sign? She said, no, I didn't need to go up there because I could see nobody coming in and out, nobody around it, so I explained to her why it was closed. She said, so it's a virus, like I could catch it like right now? I said, it's not like that way. There's a little more explanation and detail into it. She says, we heard about a virus, but isn't it like the flu virus? I said, they're cousins, but a little distance. I said, but they're cousins. They're kind of in the same family, but no. And I asked, I said, no one's talked to you? She said, no. We don't know. We just know that certain things are closed. She said, we know that you can go to the laundromat. Some of them used to hang out there, and they knew that they couldn't hang out there no more. Well, not in there, in the front, but they just noticed things, not many cars on the street. So they've been noticing things, but they can't figure out why. Well, you know what? I got angry at that point. I wasn't angry at her, no. I was angry at the city because the city knows we have a population of homeless. And no one bothered to say, hey, nobody bothered to go to the shelter and say, hey, guess what? No one bothered to hand them out a sheet of paper, to say the boom. Nobody. I said, so we have a whole population of people who don't know or who heard that it's like the flu. Well, you know what? You could tell me something is like the flu. That didn't tell me anything at all because it didn't mean anything to me. So to them, this is the flu. But what happened? Everything is shut down. So anyway, to fast forward, I had asked, I'm going to call her a friend now because I've been on her for a little bit. So she's no longer just, the other person. She's a friend now. But I talked to Dr. Eady Mann, who's a real doctor. And I asked her to come on the show. And she was like, yes. And I told her we're going to have the questions about the virus so she can explain. And, you get tired of listening to other people explain who are quote unquote experts, but they're not doctors. So that doesn't work anymore. We've gone beyond the what she said. We need to hear from a doctor who actually can say, boom, this is it. But also, she stepped out again and she said, hey, gotta go talk to the homeless. I'm like, whoa, yes, because like I said, they're left out. So I went to the homeless shelter and I talked to the guy in charge. He was like, she's a real doctor? I'm like, yeah. He said, yeah, tell her to come. When's she coming? I mean, he was like excited. He said, because his employees need to know the same information. So she's my guest this morning. So good morning, Dr. Mann.
Good morning, Miss Phyllis. How are you?
I'm bored.
I hear you.
But like I said, the employees are excited. I think the employees are more excited than the people who are there.
Right.
And also, some of them there that are sickly, they're keeping them there. So they need you to explain that part.
Yes, ma'am.
Because he doesn't know. I mean, not to say they don't have the virus, but they're sickly.
Yes.
So they're staying there, and they just kind of shuffle them around into shelter. But
right.
They need you. Okay, so this virus.
Yeah.
Can you explain the heck of what it is?
Sure. So it is a virus that existed in animal populations that made a jump into humans at the end of last year, beginning of this year. And it mutated. Previously, it had only existed in animals. It mutated so that it could jump into humans, and then it mutated in a way that allowed it to jump from human to human. And it did that in a very short period of time. From the time that first case mutated into humans, it started spreading very rapidly. And the reason that it's spreading rapidly is because humans have never encountered this virus before. So our immune systems are completely unprepared to deal with this virus. So the thing that I tell people is it's like when you send your child to daycare or school for the first time and they come back and they are sick over and over again because they are encountering viruses that their bodies have never been exposed to before. So we are all kindergartners right now. We are all in a situation where we are going to come in contact with a virus that our bodies haven't seen before and don't know how to react. And there are certain among us who will get sick, and some people will have very severe disease and some people will recover easily. And we don't know how to predict that yet, who's going to have the severe cases. We don't know how to prevent them from having severe cases, and we don't have great treatments for when those severe cases occur. So we're dealing with a situation where between 20 and 50% of us will get sick with this virus at some point. And so what we're trying to do is make sure that we have the medical capacity to care for people when that happens, the time that we need to develop vaccines, the time we need to develop medications to take care of people who get sick, and the time that we need to slow the progress down so that we have hospital beds and ventilators and so forth to be able to care for the very sick who get it.
So, okay, you're saying the kids, the kindergarten kids in pre-K. Mm-hmm. So for an adult, it's like an adult who first starts working with the pre-K. Because if you're an adult and you start working with pre-K kids, you're going to catch everything because your body is not.
That's exactly right. That's exactly
it's ready
right.
for it. Okay, so how do we, as adults or anybody, what do we do to cause it to transfer from person to person? I'll put it that way.
It's transmitted mostly through respiratory droplets and through the air, but included in that is when you touch your face, your hands can get those respiratory droplets on them. So if you wipe your nose, you touch your eyes, you are constantly transmitting secretions onto your hands, which then can go onto surfaces. The virus can live on a surface for a while. It can live in the air for a short period of time. So if someone coughs or sneezes in your vicinity, the virus can exist in the air for a period of time. We don't know exactly how long yet. If you touch a door handle and you've coughed or sneezed, your germs go on that door handle. So some of the things that we know just from general infection control apply to this virus, but it is much more infectious, much more contagious than even the flu virus is. And you couple that with the fact that, again, none of us have ever encountered this virus before. Many of us have encountered flu viruses before, some version of a flu virus, so we're less prone to getting a flu virus than we would be to getting COVID-19 because we have no exposure to COVID-19 at all.
So we're just kind of stuck with it being our friend for a while.
It's going to be our friend for a while, and the goal that we're trying to get out to people, the reason that you're being told that you need to stay at home is not that we can stop the virus from spreading through our population. It's going to happen. It's to make sure that we have time to develop treatments to keep people from getting very sick with it and time to develop a vaccine so that we can protect our populations.
Okay, so I have a question. A friend of mine, she was sick. Well, she is sick. She doesn't know she had the virus yet, though. But she's sick. She's been sick for like 14 days. You know who I'm talking about, too. I'll tell you later who she is. But anyway, she went to the doctor, and they gave her a flu shot. So they didn't test her. They just gave her a flu shot. Knowing when they gave her the flu shot, she was been sick at that time about 10 days. Mm-hmm. So why didn't they test her? Is there a reason?
Yes, there's a really good reason. We don't have enough test kits to test everybody who we would like to test. In my office, we are inundated with phone calls from people who think they might have the virus, and we were only given 20 test kits specifically for coronavirus. So, and that's true everywhere. There are places that don't have test kits at all. There are hospitals that can't test people for coronavirus because they don't have enough testing capability. If we were doing this the right way, we would have mobilized test kits in January, sent them out everywhere, made sure that labs were able to process the test kits, and we would have been doing millions of tests. That's what happened in South Korea, where they were able to very effectively slow down the spread of the virus. And the way they did that is using epidemiology to identify cases early in the course, isolate those people, and stop them from spreading it to other people as rapidly. So right now, what doctors are doing is telling people, if you have mild disease, don't ask for a test. We really are not going to test you right now because we need to save the few tests that we have for the sickest people. So we know that those people have to be isolated and not get their healthcare providers and contaminate the hospital rooms and the ventilators and all of that. So we are really asking people who have mild disease to just self-isolate, don't get tested, save those tests for the sickest of the sick. And hopefully we're going to be ramping up the ability to test people here in the near future so we can do more widespread testing.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you a logical question because people don't. I thought people knew some of the answers, but they didn't. What's up with the 61 and up people? 60 and up, excuse me, yes.
We now have enough data from other countries to see who is most at risk for having severe disease and most at risk from dying from this virus. 80 and up is the highest risk, but 60 and up has higher risk than the rest of the population. People who have other health issues like heart and lung disease, diabetes, people who are immunocompromised because of medicines that they take for other conditions, people who are on chemotherapy for cancer, those people are immunocompromised and they have a higher rate of having more severe disease. So when we know that 80 and up is really at risk, 70 and up is risky, and 60 and up has an increased risk over the general population, we want to be very safe and say we're going to start telling people 60 and above that they have the highest risk because as you get older, the risk does increase.
And what about people that have bronchitis?
Bronchitis would fall under the heart and lung disease. So people who have chronic bronchitis, emphysema, COPD, asthma, those people have higher rates of more severe disease.
I didn't want to hear that.
I'm sorry.
I have seasonal bronchitis.
Yours is probably not as big of a thing as someone who has chronic bronchitis, right?
Okay. All right. So how does a virus go from animals to human? What? Because it looks like they would have not have their own, but it looks like if it's theirs, then it's theirs. Yeah. But it went from theirs to us.
That happens actually quite frequently. Ebola virus, for example, is mostly in monkeys, and every once in a while it'll jump from monkeys into humans and start an epidemic. The SARS virus from, I think it was 2001, 2002, did the same thing. It is not uncommon for animal viruses to jump to humans, and viruses don't care what their host is. Their only job in life is to replicate, and they need a host of any kind to be able to replicate. So viruses mutate constantly. The flu virus mutates every year. That's why we have to have a different flu vaccine every year. This is just what infectious disease does. Bacteria do the same thing. That's why we have resistant staph infections, because a normal staph bacteria at some point mutated to become resistant to antibiotics. In those cases, that was promoted by people using antibiotics unnecessarily, but in viruses, they don't have the same life cycle as bacteria do, so they're constantly mutating and changing their ability to jump from species to species.
So, well, I'm not picking on them, but I'm saying it. Will the homeless be a higher population? Or wouldn't they be?
The main risk for people who are homeless is that they don't have the ability to self-isolate in many cases, the same as the general population does. They don't have access to healthcare resources. They are not getting the information that they need. They are not able to do frequent hand sanitizing and cleansing like they normally would. They're at risk just in general because they are exposed to the elements all of the time. Right. So they definitely have an increased risk compared to other populations. And we have traditionally in this country, we have not prioritized our most vulnerable populations. Prison populations are another example in this case. They can't get out of a situation where they are crammed in with other people all the time. Immigrants at the border are having the same situation happen to them when they're in custody with ICE, when they're sent back to Mexico and they're in camps in Matamoros. So we have a number of vulnerable populations. Women who are suffering from domestic violence often do not have a way to get out of that situation and help themselves be safe. So the homeless absolutely fall into that vulnerable population.
So does our drug addicts too, I suppose.
Yes.
Because So we have populations, well, the homeless, I said the homeless because when I open the show, I let everybody know they don't know.
That's correct.
So in other words, each city in the United States, I'm blaming should make it a point.
Yes.
To reach out,
yes, to
say, hey, this is what it is. This is what's going on.
Absolutely, and it shouldn't be being left to volunteers like you to do that. It shouldn't. This is something that, again, vulnerable populations should be prioritized, and that's never what we do.
No, because Killeen, I'm busting y'all out for real, seriously. Joe is happy about that. I spoke to our city manager and just, light conversation. And I felt that, yes, we have some homeless. We need to do something about it, but it wasn't a care. It was just we need to do something about it.
Right.
Much like, there's an ant over there. We need to go do something about it. So there was no feelings into that, which did disappoint me because I said to myself, and I'm going to say her name, Melissa Brown. We are the ones who do the block party for the homeless and bring everything together. We do that. So we do step out and, when something's happening to say, hey, do y'all know this? No, okay, fine, let's get it, let's do this. Because I'll say if no one else does, somebody needs to do it. And like I said, they're not, we don't need to blame them for being homeless, because we don't know their situation or issue. But by the same token, we need to make sure that they're safe and okay, because there's still people that live in our community, and they're ours. Whether we like it or not, they're ours, and we need to take the step out. And that's why I asked you, are they both vulnerable? Because, like you said, they're outside, and they're amongst just themselves, and they don't know who has what amongst themselves.
Right.
So, and also, we don't, the people who feed them, we don't know. So it's a whole bunch of contact that they have with people, and they don't know. They don't know not to shake hands, and they don't know. And sanitizer, I assume like everybody else ran out. They ran out too, because I ran out, but I found something else to use to make sanitizer with other than alcohol. We won't discuss what I found out. But there are some other distilled items that you can find at other stores that you can make hand sanitizer with. Needless to say, I failed science, but I didn't fail that part of science. I'll let Joe know what other distilled items can be used for hand sanitizer. Just don't get picked up by the police. But I'm glad you're going to talk to them. So you've done some tests on people,
Yes, I have.
and have all the tests been no? They don't have it.
No, we had our first positive test this week.
Does that make you nervous?
Not really. I got to say, this is what I trained for my entire career. I've always had a job where I knew there would be a possibility that I would be put in harm's way as part of this job. And we, in the medical field, we stay connected through medical societies, and regularly we are alerted that we're going to have a test run to see who's available to come and help in an emergency situation. So that's something that's an ongoing process and an ongoing part of what I do as a doctor. So for me, this is what I trained for. You know, it's much more meaningful to me to be able to truly help and save a life than a lot of the daily work that I do, which is important, but this is something that I'm happy to be of service. I've got low risk. I don't have health conditions that put me at risk. I have other providers in my office who are much riskier than I am. So I'm very happy to be able to provide that. And I'm the only doctor in the office doing the testing. I volunteered to do that so that the other providers, because of their situations, wouldn't be put at risk. So it doesn't really scare me. It gives me an opportunity to be very helpful in a very real way.
Okay. I want to ask you about the mask people.
Yes.
The people that wear the mask. Mm-hmm. Who should be wearing the mask? Because you see people wearing the mask, and if we're told that if you have the virus, you wear the mask, and you saw these people with a mask who couldn't possibly be positive because they're not. I mean, you know, they can't be. So who should wear a mask?
Healthcare providers. So here's the reality of cloth masks and the masks that you can buy over the counter. They let in anywhere from 50 to 97% of the germs that are out there. So if someone is wearing a mask to protect themselves, they're really not getting protection from that. But if someone is sick and wears a mask, it can slow down or limit the number of particles that spread out into the community. So a mask on a sick person protects me. A mask on me doesn't protect me from a sick person who doesn't have a mask on. So it's a very different thing than what we think that it does. Yeah, the other part of it is that when people use masks just randomly and willy-nilly, there's a couple of things that happen. One is some people, it reminds them not to touch their face, which is a good reminder. Mm-hmm. But for other people, it causes them to be riskier in what they do. They think, oh, I have my mask on, so I can put myself in a situation that might not be safe for me. And the other thing that happens is it limits the masks that are available for people who do need them in the healthcare system. So I really would rather people self-isolate than go in public with a mask on.
What about the gloves?
Gloves are a different thing because you don't have to breathe through gloves. The reason that masks are problematic just in general is because they have to let air in and out. Right. And they have to be engineered. They're very high-tech. They look, the ones that we wear, the ones that are called N95 masks, which everyone has heard about now, they are feats of engineering. They are engineered to not let air escape from the outside at all. And they allow you to breathe but not get germs back in. So no other type of mask does that because no other mask seals around the edges and completely blocks air coming in and out around the edges. And so gloves, you don't have to breathe through. Right. So any glove is protective. You can wear gloves if you want to, if you're out in public and you're concerned about touching surfaces and so forth. But then you can't touch your face with the glove on because then you haven't done anything differently.
Because of cross-contamination.
Yes.
Such as when you take I saw this lady, she had on gloves, and I was, oh, okay, cool. Mm-hmm. But then she took them off. I'm like, you took them off wrong, lady.
Exactly. There is a right and a wrong way.
I'm like, you took the gloves off all wrong.
Yes.
Because I was watching it, and the lady was a friend of mine where she goes, she took them off from. I'm like, yeah, we would know because, well, we work with special needs kids.
Yes.
So we wear gloves basically, I don't know how many times a day, but we know how to take them off.
Yes.
And I'm looking at her, I'm like, you took them off all wrong. You touched your hand with your other hand.
Yes.
You just crossed everything out.
Right, and there's a right and a wrong way to put your mask on, too. And that is something that I had to beef up on myself when I started doing the testing for coronavirus. I was trained to do proper putting on and taking off of protective equipment, but it's been 20 years since I was trained to do that because that's not something I have to do in my daily practice. So I've had to go back and review how to do it properly. And it's another piece of how this whole process has gone badly. That is something that should have been sent out to healthcare providers in January. Hey, we've got this coming. Review your procedures. Here's what you should be doing. And none of that has happened. Little different healthcare providers, different healthcare systems, different medical societies have had to come up with their own ideas and their own methods and their own trainings. And so it's very not uniform across our healthcare system right now.
Wow. So when you get the virus and they hospitalize you, since we don't have a cure, what do they do to you or for you?
Right. It's mostly providing oxygen, supplemental oxygen when needed, because respiratory distress is the thing that is harming people, that is killing people. The virus attaches to the lungs and disrupts the ability to exchange air back and forth in the lungs. So most people, not all, but most people are not getting pneumonia on top of it. With flu, the reason people die most frequently is because they get a secondary infection like pneumonia. That's not the case with coronavirus. People are dying because they go into something called respiratory distress syndrome, where the alveoli, the small air sacs in the lungs, cannot exchange oxygen anymore. And so we force as much oxygen into their lungs as possible to make up for the fact that some of those alveoli are not exchanging air anymore. And so providing respiratory support and fluids, because a lot of people get dehydrated. You're breathing rapidly, you dehydrate just from breathing. And then in very, very severe cases, there are teaching hospitals and hospitals that are doing investigations. They're doing clinical trials where they may try some last-ditch medications that to see if we can get any benefit out of them. So that's really what it is support in the hospital.
So how long do they keep you? Until
you can breathe on your own.
Wow. So I don't know what I thought they did. I have no clue. I was wondering, like, what do they do? What do they do in hospital for you that you can't do at home? Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. So they just make sure that you're breathing properly.
Yes.
So that's why they don't tell you. That's why they're not testing everybody.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So would an inhaler work?
No.
I knew you'd say that.
I'm sorry. Yes, and let me expand on that. I've had a lot of people ask me, would an inhaler work? Would a nebulizer work? Would a CPAP machine work? The answer, unfortunately, to all of that is no, because they don't address what's happening at the air sac level inside the lungs.
Wow. So this only attacks the lungs.
That's where the problems in terms of survival come in, is at the lung level. I don't want to say it doesn't attack other things, but for example, it doesn't cause neurologic issues. Right. Okay. It doesn't cause specific kidney and liver problems. However, your kidneys and your liver get damaged when you're not breathing properly, you're not aerating properly, and when you're not having enough fluids. So you get secondary kidney and renal failure, kidney and liver failure when you're so sick that your lungs are not working properly.
So someone who smokes is endangering themselves also.
Smoking is a problem, yes.
Because that's back to your lungs again.
Yes.
So people should stop smoking.
Yes.
Ooh, okay. So, all right, I'll say I'm going to use me. I'm rarely sick. Once a year, I do get sick. Mm-hmm. Once a year, my voice goes, and I know when it happens, and then I'm fine for the rest of the year. Mm-hmm. So does that make me highly susceptible because my body would not know what the heck is going on at that point of time?
It keeps you the same susceptible as everybody else.
Okay, good. Because I am that one. The kids can cough in my face all day long, and I'm like, whatever.
Yeah.
I'm the one that goes, yeah, whatever.
Right.
I'm not going to catch it, and I usually don't. And I don't. Like I said, I get sick every April. I'm dead sick for April.
Yeah.
Then I'm fine. It's almost like my body is relaxing and says, we're going to do everything wrong for 1 month, and then we'll let you have your body back.